So this is James's burger today.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I only had one of those portobello mushrooms left, so I figured you may as well have it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it over on this side.
Okay.
I'm going to make 2 open-faced sandwiches. So portobello mushrooms are kind of like burgers on their own.
Well, some people use them as
Yeah,
that.
exactly right. So it's not as though you've innovated with that
No.
much less meat, but
But I actually don't like them used that way because I find that they're too moist. So
they're a little
if you-
rubbery. But,
if you put them with a regular, like, this one's a vegan chicken, fake chicken patty that I made. And if you look back, you may be able to find a recipe for it in one of my videos.
I'm going to put a tomato on.
Because I did record many videos showing how to make.
Yeah, hopefully that wasn't scrubbed by some of our little.
But somehow some of my videos got deleted, like a lot.
Latter day Cato's. Was Cato a censor back in the day? Yeah.
And I don't know if it was the site, the thing that's hosting my videos.
Yeah, or it might have been somebody
hacking in and doing it. I don't know.
Some other government agency.
I don't know why anyone would, because nobody watches my stuff.
It could be Putin and company.
I mean,
it could be because we were criticizing the People's Republic of China, and they've been known to hack.
Yeah, they probably didn't delete my veggie burger recipes because
who knows? You know,
who could find that offensive?
Who knows?
Anyway, so I'm going to review this book, Hard Spell by Justin Gustainus.
Yeah, I wonder if that's Latvian or Lithuanian, one of the Baltic states. But of course, with a first name like that, he's probably, what is the first name again? Justin. Yeah, he probably comes from the U.S. or Canada, someplace like that.
Anyway, so I'm looking at the cover, and this was one of the ones that's been on my shelf forever, and I haven't bothered to read it. It looks... I don't know. A little bit homemade kind of publisher. I don't know. I don't know how to... Anyway, I wasn't sold by the cover. And now I totally want to look up the rest of his books. So awesome. So I'm reading this, and one of the first things that I noticed, okay, I'll just, was that there's only one chapter. There's no chapters in this book. It just goes through. And I was like, who does that? You know? Because at least for a lot of amiable people, and I mean, if you're writing fiction, your audience is largely amiable people, honestly. And but for a lot of them, they do what they're told, and they don't have a lot of time. So they like short chapters, because what that tells them is finish here, right? You can put your bookmark here, and you've done your work for today. You don't have to read anymore. And they feel content with that. They can go on and do whatever other work they have to get done. And so the reading fiction helps them that way. I've talked to a lot of amiable people. They like short chapters. So anyway, the more I read in this, I'm like, wow, this guy really makes it sound like he knows about police. He's like, was he a police officer or something? But he's here, he obviously knows a lot about supernatural sort of stuff, right? And this is an alternate sort of world where pretty much everyone knows about supernatural beings, and they're just, it's kind of like the X-Men, you know, they're living with them. And so they have a police squad or whatever that deals with stuff like that. And anyway, so awesome. It's written so that it's totally believable. And you don't like, there isn't the information on the back about the cover here or anything, and I didn't know that there was any until I actually got to the end of the book. And
it's funny where they put these things. See, it's about the author.
Yeah. And so this is, and it's right before a free chapter for some other book, you know, that you come across this if you're
literally
reading
a trailer that comes at the end.
Yeah. You come across this if you're reading paperbacks like this. Anyway, so about the author, he attended college at the University of Scranton, earned a bachelor's and master's degree, and then he went into the Army, and he was a speechwriter and a bodyguard, and then he earned a PhD at Bowling Green State University in Ohio. And
hello, Ohio, and hello to Pennsylvania.
He is a professor of communication at Plattsburgh State University, where he won.
I think it would be in New York.
He earned the SUNY Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Teaching in 2002.
SUNY, State University of New York, Plattsburgh.
Yeah.
Hello, New York.
So, wow. I mean, I never would have guessed that this was written by somebody with a PhD. But while I was reading it, I'm like, gee, he seems to know about police and military. I mean, that's sort of, a lot of people who go from the military end up in police, and he was a bodyguard for a while. And
I've known a few.
So anyway, it's, wow.
The funny one.
Great job.
Thing is, the guys I knew who went from the military to the police were a little more relaxed than average guys.
Yeah.
Better sense of humor. So there was a guy called, he had a recipe.
Wow, those flies are going after the book now because they know they can't get a hold of the burger anymore. Oh, that one was cheeky. You wanted your mushroom. But yeah, the book is basically a police detective novel. And you're following the mystery along, and it's really well laid out. Like, you have a couple internal mysteries that, like about the police officer's daughter, and then there's another mystery I won't let on anything about. So there's some character development sort of mysteries in there, as well as the trying to track down the murderer, whatever. So awesome. So if anybody likes reading police dramas or police whatever, police fiction, then they would like reading this. If anybody likes anything to do with reading about vampires or anything occult sort of thing, they would also enjoy reading this.
Wow.
So this book, I don't know why I haven't heard of it. It should be extremely popular. It's really well written. Read it. Oh, and also, I was wanting to talk about James Berger a little bit.
The one that's almost disappeared.
Yeah. Lately I've been going over food that maybe it's not the healthiest food in the world, but it's something that you can make while you're working. When we were working, we were exhausted. I mean, we were doing labor sort of stuff, and it's a lot of work. And you get home and you grab whatever is already ready. So many times I would grab one of those big bags of potato chips, crack it open, and go right through that thing. And that would be supper, because I was so tired. And then I would grab a bottle of wine and open it, have a glass of wine. Have a glass of water, have a glass of wine. Because if you balance it off, you have wine and then you have a glass of water, you don't get the hangover. So, which I'm not recommending that people drink alcohol. But when you're in a position where you're really unhappy and there doesn't seem to be any light at the end of the tunnel for you're in this kind of work for a low wage and never get out sort of life. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So anyway, this is something that you can make when you're working. You have time to make this. What I would do on the weekends is I would whip up a batch of veggie burgers. And if you go back in my videos, you can see when I'm talking a batch, big. And then I would eat that 3 times a day or whatever, because you can do that. You can toast a bun, slice some cucumber, tomato, put a little bit of avocado on there, and maybe if you have some leafy greens around, put that on, whatever, and you're done. And that's a pretty healthy meal. It's not the healthiest. If you have time to do something healthier, I wouldn't recommend going with a burger unless you have somebody who really loves eating burgers, like James. Then this is going to be healthier than something else that he would buy, right? Like if he was going to go out and buy a veggie burger, well, one, it would be expensive. Whereas making your own cheapy veggie burgers,
ingredients that you've got, they basically charge what they charge for meat burgers.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Or more.
Veggies are cheap, cheap, cheap.
Yeah. It's so cheap to make these things. And they're healthier than the meat. I mean, as much as even, like if you're not buying organic or whatever, and you, I mean, this is not organic, this patty. It's, the protein base in it is chickpea flour, which I have recommended in the past because you can buy a big bag of it from Great Canadian Wholesale. It's already ground up and it's so easy to use for this.
So it's cheap?
Yeah.
It's flexible?
Yeah.
And way healthier than regular flour?
Yeah. It's but I mean, that stuff that I get, it's not organic. So there's a problem, and I've talked about that before. If you're going to buy non-organic beans or whatever, or seeds or anything, like I've talked about sprouting things. When you sprout them beforehand, so you get your whole beans or peas or whatever, and you sprout them beforehand, you're rinsing and you're rinsing and you're rinsing and you're rinsing. So the first you soak them, and then you take them out of the bowl, like you have them in the colander lined with a tea towel, and you put them in the bowl that the colander fits in with water. And you take them out of there after they've soaked for a while, and then you put them in the sink. And every time you use the kitchen sink, every time you get a glass of water, every time you whatever, you rinse that bowl of peas or beans, and until they're sprouted. Then you know that whatever was on the outside of those things, it's really washed off by then. So
it's an important sort of thing.
Yeah. Whereas when you buy the chickpea flour, especially when it's not organic like that, well, it's not washed, right? So anytime you buy any kind of flour, it's not washed. You can't wash it. So it's better off, you're better off to buy things that are whole and then wash them yourself. Because otherwise it's not washed. You don't know what's on that stuff. So anyway, so as much as this one used with chickpea flour, it is healthier than a meat sort of thing, because with the meat you're buying, are you getting free-range organic meat? No, you're not. You're probably getting whatever is you're finding in the grocery store aisle, and you're hoping for the best. It's already ground up with whatever. You don't know. And plus that animal was fed all sorts of growth hormones, antibiotics, whatever. You don't know. And if that animal was fed that, that's in the meat. You're eating it. So I mean, I don't miss eating meat. I ate meat for a while when I was a teenager. Maybe a year. I don't know. And I don't miss it. Especially now that I've informed myself more over the years, I really don't miss it. What about you, James? It's been a more recent transition for you. Do you miss it? But then he eats fish.
Fish.
Yeah.
That's because I seem to need the vitamin D. I don't like it. I never liked the taste of fish.
I just take a lot of supplements.
I think it's because of bone marrow cancer. You need vitamin D to, like I've got, you need vitamin D to, rehabilitate your bones. And I think because the bone marrow, the cancer breaks down the bones to the vitamin D. So I'd rather do without the fish. Fish are wonderful people too.
Yeah, they really are.
Colleen's kept me.
Yeah, I've had some lovely fish. There was one, my favorite was a Hoplosternum thoracatum. He was a lovely fish. He would, my second favorite was a Polypterus palmus, and I don't know if it should be called Polypterus or Polypterus. I don't know if that P is, that second P is silent. Anyway, I have no clue. But the Hoppy Cat was so awesome. He was kind of shy, and he would, I had my sofa beside his fish tank right here, right? And I'd feel like somebody was watching me all of a sudden. I'd look over, and there he'd be. He'd be looking right at me. And then when I looked over, he'd be all shy and he'd scurry away.
Secret admirer.
Yeah, he liked to be a secret admirer. He was very sweet. I loved that fish.
So, I mean, people can get emotional about angelfish, but and the more beautiful ones, but every fish.
Well, I thought Hoppy was beautiful.
Exactly. Well, I'm not saying it was a he. Where you never tell he, she. But I don't know. I like watching fish. The way they move around.
Yeah. Had my first fish tank when I was 10. And
they're hard to keep, especially when they're salt water.
Well, I don't know. I've never kept salt.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have crashes.
My ex would keep salt, and yeah, he'd have crashes. It was devastating. He'd lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, fish are good people.
I think they are. Yeah. Some people might disagree about sharks. Piranhas. There's a large
Everyone's got to eat.
meat-eating fish in Africa. It was appalling. I was watching a documentary, one of the best I have ever seen, about this fish. I don't know, was it in the Okavango swamp area or something like that? It was in southern Africa. Anyway, the story about amongst the
locals there.
Yeah, was that there was this big fish with big teeth, and of course Whitey was in there poo-pooing the scientist, and got them all out. Anyway, poo-pooing it. So one guy they had on there, he had I don't know, part of his leg ripped open or something like that, and he was claiming that he'd been ripped open by one of these fish, and there was a lot of poo-pooing and stuff like that. And so this guy was involved with the documentary. I don't know if he's the actual maker of the film. Decided to stake out, and it was a revelation. I don't know if they put out bait or something like that, but they showed these reeds moving. So it wasn't just one fish. They didn't know what it was. And then they got hold of one. It made a piranha look like a piker. Not a pike, but a piker. Huge by comparison with piranha. Huge big teeth. They were there all the time. So, this is the thing about props. They know everything, right? Mm-hmm. Including about, if they're in the humanities, about what's racist and what isn't. And yet you get them dealing with the locals, patting them on the head. Oh yeah, you haven't got those funny stories. The Great White Father knows best. Times really haven't changed that much. So those sort of stories that I love. I mean, a lot of the research I do, historical stuff, was triggered by the possibility that there's more to certain sort of kinds of stories, things that are classified as myth, maybe better classified as legend, and maybe mythicality. Then you start finding some patterns. Like why around the world, like here's a lie that I got from the university. He's a very nice person, but it was actually in a text that we were assigned. The text was, I believe, on Gilgamesh, Babylonian myth. And the writer of the text said, it is a falsehood that around the world there are flood myths. Lie. Pants on fire, panties on fire, short and curlies on fire, liar. There are flood myths found around the world.
So many that it may be wrong to call them myths, exactly.
They are legends. Because what happens is, what you look for, if you run across accounts of something, what you look for, differing accounts, or descriptions of stuff that seems weird, like something blowing up over, was that Chelyabinsk, someplace in western Siberia, within the last 10 years. Funny story, but then what you do is you look for a recording of it. For past stuff, it has to be oral. It wasn't even written down. Nowadays, people can just put up their cameras, that they're carrying around, and their phones and stuff like that, and you get documentation. So what you look for is objectivity. What you look for are things where there are details, or at least one detail, where it's a common thread. And what have you got with the flood? It's the Pleiades. Uh-oh, you lying liars at universities are going around saying the flood is just a myth. Because how would you get this? It would have to be something that was there when humankind started separating, like with the first family, and something to do with the Pleiades and something to do with a flood, a connection. So the Pleiades, you'll find connections of Pleiades with a flood or the end of the world in Amazon basin, in ancient Mexico, in present-day Holy Land, that's amongst the Hebrews, Jews. You will find it connected in, let me see if I can amongst the connection with water with the Greeks. So we've gone Asia, Europe. Oh yeah, I left out Africa. You know, I've got a Pygmy English dictionary. That's what it's called, as I recall. Nowadays it would be Khoisan or something like that. Bushman. It did say Pygmy. Bushman. Politically incorrect designation. And
Pygmy is?
Bushman.
Oh.
Bushmen. They call them Khoisan. And those are the two big language groups.
But the Bushmen are also small. They're
small.
Not pygmies.
The pygmies tend to have dark pigmentation, and the Bushmen tend to have looks kind of oriental kind of color or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So you'll find pygmoid type of people other places. I think Southeast Asia, maybe some other places. It's fascinating. But yeah, so I'm looking through this Bushman dictionary, and that's how it's classified. So that's what we'll call it. And I'm looking at the Pleiades. There it is, Pleiades, right next to it. And you know, like anyone who knows anything about linguistics knows that the good guess, the best guess, is that the two are related. They're right next to each other. They start with the same thing, same root, and it's a heavy rain, the kind of rain that hardly ever occurs. The Pleiades, heavy rain. What does Pleiades mean in Greek? It's a Greek word. It means the sailing one. And it was that area of the sky associated with rain. I get this out of Claude Lévi-Strauss. Of course, he's got everything wrong, or Strauss is probably the way it's pronounced. It would come from France, even though it would be Alsace-Lorraine, probably a poor, unfortunate Jew who came from there. At least part two. And you know, tossed back and forth between Germany and France. It's like going from the frying pan into the fire. I'm not sure which is good. Well, in the recent times, the worst has been Germany.
Yeah.
Up till Hitler, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Great. I don't have to mention the word.
It might be
Dreyfus.
worse now in France, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Much worse. So Claude Lévi-Strauss is talking, I think it's in The Raw and the Cook, talking about the Amazon basin and the myths there. I see them, legends. And he says, wow, you know, it's funny because in the Amazon basin, the Pleiades are associated with drought. And he's talking about the structural sort of thing, this antithesis. He says, oh, in Greece, it's associated with, they are associated with rain. And with in the Amazon basin, it's associated with drought. Why there'd be that antithesis? You know, at such a long distance. So we're talking about the old world versus the new world versus the old world. I should have, what's happening here? What he doesn't understand is, you see, there's no pure opposites in this world. That's one of the troubles with structuralism. There are lots of problems with it. That's one of the problems. Still got some playing time?
Yeah, you have 30 seconds. Can you wrap it up?
That's one of the problems. Okay, so what you see, it's not opposite when it comes to what the Pleiades are a faucet. Faucets are associated with water, turning it on, turning it off. We'll talk about it in the future.